Welcome to From Me to We on the We Go Kids Parenting, Web TV, and Podcast Network. Welcome to From Me to We, where we talk about how our everyday views have changed from when we were single to now that we're parents. We are your hosts and parents of triplets, Parag and Sapna Shah. Here we go. Today we're talking about kids and chores. So I came across this really shocking statistic that said 82% of parents were asked to do chores as children, but only 28% of them ask their kids to do chores.
Wow, that's quite surprising, actually. Did you do chores when you were little?
I never did chores, but I think I have to have the caveat that I was an only child. So I never did chores. We had never had a chore chart. The way my mom talked about doing responsibilities, which you would consider as chores now, like making your bed, she just said that was part of what you do, your morning routine.
Right.
So she would explain to me that part of your morning routine is when you get up, you make your bed, then you go to the bathroom, and then you brush your teeth, et cetera, take off your clothes, take off your pajamas, fold them, put them on your bed. So it was never talked about as chores, and it was always just part of like my morning routine. But in terms of like taking out the garbage, emptying the dishwasher, cleaning the car or anything, that all came like really, really later in life when my mom was like, okay, you need to learn these skills because you're going to get married and you're going to need them.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think we were the same way too. We didn't have chores per se. We never called them chores. We were never given a list of things to do. There was a lot of things that were kind of like assumed, and that maybe it was a little bit boys do these things, girls do these things.
Yeah. Like
my sister was never met. She never had to take out the garbage. She never had to mow the lawn. She never had to shovel the snow. And so those are things that were kind of expected of me. And again, we didn't have a chore list. We didn't have things that we did and under the guise that we'd get paid. Like there was no allowance associated with our chores. So we just did things around the house. My parents would say, do this, and then because we needed to get it done or you need to help out here, and we would just pick up and do it.
So how old were you when you started doing those things?
I don't even remember not doing it. So whatever age that is, we were just doing things like grocery shopping. We would go. I used to love going grocery shopping. I still do.
Which I love about you because I hate going grocery shopping.
Yeah. So, my parents would take me grocery shopping, and they would teach me like how to pick out the fruits and how to pick out the vegetables and how long things will last in the fridge and to keep it inside or outside. And then as a result of that, you'd come home, and we used to have those paper grocery bags when we were little.
Yeah.
So we'd fold. My dad always wanted them neat. So we would fold them up and we would put them in the drawer, and then we would do the same thing with the plastic bags. And that was part of okay, you finished going grocery shopping, tidy up part of the routine.
Right. And so that was disguised as...
Yeah, it was never... Right. It was never... There was nothing written that said this is a chore and therefore you have to do it.
Yeah.
And our names were on the... There was no chore chart, I guess that's what we called it today.
Yeah.
And we knew when the garbage day was, so we were responsible for getting all the garbage. We'd have to go through the house and collect all the garbage from all the garbage cans, put in the new bags, take it all out, throw in the garbage, do it again, right? We didn't have recycling back then. We didn't have a dishwasher, so there was nothing to load or unload.
Well, I think what shocks me is kind of this idea when we got pregnant and, started thinking about, maybe we should start thinking about how we raise kids. And all of the conversations that I heard or things that I read were, at 5 or 6 or 7 years old, there's a chore chart and and all of these kind of tools and things for teaching your kids responsibility and to help around the house. And I was shocked when the triplets at 18 months old came to help me empty the dishwasher.
Right.
And that blew my mind. And in Raising EI, I got to interview Danny Brom, a professional organizer. But she kind of validated that her girls at 18 months were also able to help her empty the dishwasher. Now, obviously that comes with the caveat that they're not going to do it the way that you do it at that age. But the fact that the triplets would come and they would kind of know how to stack things and give me things that they thought were, maybe like glass or whatever, and handle like the plastic things that were theirs. It just blew my mind. So then I was every time I was emptying the dishwasher, I never said to them, hey, okay, now it's time to empty the dishwasher. I would just say, I'm emptying the dishwasher, and they'd come running.
Right. And I think that I think they saw a routine that we were doing. Okay, after we ate, we would rinse off the dishes, put them in the dishwasher, and the next morning we'd empty them. So I think that sort of became their routine. They're like, oh, these people are doing the same thing every morning.
Yeah, that must be what we do in this family.
We do in the family, right? So we do that, and now they're making their own beds. It's laughable what they call making their beds, but they're at least doing it, right? They know that that's a part of the waking up process. You wake up, you tidy up what you just made a mess of, which is your bed. You get ready, you make it so it's easy for you in the evening.
Right.
So they don't have to make the bed again. They know exactly where all their clothes are. They know where all their blankets and their teddy bears and everything are.
Yeah.
So I think that routine, you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can give it a label of a chore. You can give it a label of age-appropriate tasks. But I think once they see a routine, kids automatically pick that up. That's what we do.
Yeah, I think that the earlier you start, the better off you are. That as soon as they start showing that initiative, that you really encourage that, because, they started doing it with the laundry when they were 2, just taking their laundry basket into the laundry room simply. But what I found, and then, with the paper towels and the garbage, right? When we took out the garbage, one time, I think I took out the garbage one time, and when I came back, there was already a clean garbage bag in the garbage can.
Yep.
And I was like, who did that? And our son was so proud of himself that he came, he said, I did that. And so the response to that was good showing initiative.
Yep.
And that for him clicked right away.
And then he took that to the next level every time, right? He would go, and when the paper towel were all emptied, he'd go and get it himself. He just did this a few days ago, and then he'll go around once a week checking make sure every washroom has enough toilet paper. So he's picking up. Now, if we called it a chore, I don't think we'd get that same bang. I think we just nurture whatever they're doing and kind of encourage that behavior. I think they'll automatically pick it up, right? So now they not fight, but they want to be the ones who set up the table for dinner. So that could be a chore in the old school way of looking at things. Your chore is, and the chore, that term just bothers me because it seems like it's tedious and it's monotonous and it's not something that's fun. But if you take anything to their level of enjoyment, I think any chore can be something that any kid can pick up and enjoy, right?
Yeah, I think, though, it also probably has a little bit to do with the way that we were raised. I agree with you. I don't like the word chore, and I don't want to teach it to the triplets. This is something that you have to do because it's a chore. But Julie on Parent Talk said that, she was raised in a house where you had chores and you had to come home and clean the house, and her dad would leave pennies under the couch to make sure that they vacuumed under there every day.
So I was kind of encouraged by that because I kind of like the idea of making the kids aware that you're there and you're watching them and you're monitoring them and you're making sure that it gets done right, because there's a right way to do things and there's a not right way to do things. So I kind of appreciated it for that angle. The one thing that she did say was that she said that allowances for them were not tied to chores. allowances were something that you get when you go above and beyond. And I really like that idea too, because I don't like that pay for performance mentality. Like, you do all your chores, you finished everything on your list, therefore you get paid. Because I think it becomes a transactional relationship then for work in the future.
Well, I mean, I think it's, again, going to depend on the parent and the parenting style. Tramika in Parent Talk says that, she's got a 3-year-old and an older son, and her sons do chores. They have a chore chart, and they have an earning based on the chore chart. And it really works for their family. And I think that, at the end of the day, that's what you have to do, is you have to figure out what works for your family and use that.
Right. And Tramika also mentioned that it was their way of teaching, it was her and her husband's way of teaching their children that this is a smaller scale of what mom and dad do. We go out, we earn money to bring to the family to, make so that we can have a comfortable life. And I think that that's a nice way of tying in the fact that people work, outside the home. When you go to work, you're doing things and you're getting compensated for that. So I appreciate that angle of it.
It's an important life lesson, and the fact that she's teaching them at age 3, that you have the ability to earn money by doing tasks is kind of an important life lesson.
Yeah, and that was the theme that I think all 5 of you were talking about on Parent Talk, was the purpose of chores or tasks are that you're teaching the children responsibility. And I'm all for teaching them responsibility. I just don't agree with the pay for performance. I'm going to keep saying that because it just comes across that way. I appreciated Julie saying that when she was being raised, that allowances again were for above and beyond. And it was the same way for us. I think we were maybe 10 or 11, maybe even a little older than that, where all of our friends were getting allowances like $5 a week for doing quote unquote chores when we were growing up. And so I think we kind of pressured our parents into giving us allowances. But at the end of the day, my sister and I never spent it. We would just collect the money and put it in the bank, right? So
saving for a future house or something.
Yeah. So my dad's like, well, you guys are not spending it. When you need spending money, we're giving you spending money. So what's this allowance business for, right? So
it's a double whammy.
Yeah. So it's like, it didn't quite make sense, because every time we wanted to buy something, he'd be like, all right, here, just get it, right?
Yeah.
And we never spent our allowance. So it didn't make sense for the way we were brought up, that allowances were stuff that you would earn to buy stuff.
Yeah. And for me, it was the same way too. And I wonder if it was more part of our culture than it was kind of the way our own parents were raised. Because, I mean, I know that in my mom's, who was born and raised in South Africa, she had 7 brothers and sisters. Everybody does chores. I mean, but they never called it that.
Yeah, and you never got paid for it either.
No ways. You never got paid for it. Yeah, you got paid with food, right? You can eat a meal.
Same with my dad. My dad grew up in a house of 9 brothers and sisters. There was I don't think you dared say, hey, am I going to get paid for this? Because the consequences were not as friendly as they are today, right? It was expected. That behavior is expected of a family member. And I think if we go with that mindset that, we expect this of our kids, then it's a part of them being a part of the family, right? You and I we work, we do things to bring a livelihood to our family, and their job as a part of the team is to do their portion of it.
Yeah.
Keep their room tidy, keep their playroom neat and clean. And I think it was Danny who mentioned it when you were interviewing her in Emotional on Raising EI, she said that their toy box and the notion of putting toys back and how that plays an important part in the child's expectations. Because when they put toys back exactly where they're supposed to be, then they know exactly where they're supposed to be. And our son says that today, and he will say to me, if I said, well, I can't find this, and he'll say, well, if you put it where it's supposed to be, you'd know where it is. And it's a good lesson to say that if things are where you put them, they're tidy. The expectation is when you go back, it's going to be there. So I like that's their job today. Their job is to make sure that they can succeed in their job, which is learn through play or learn through school. And a part of that is staying organized at their level.
And I think it does definitely have kind of a bigger world implication. When you go into the workforce, no matter what your role is, being organized, being a team player, understanding that you have to do your part, like all of those attributes or those characteristics are really important for being successful in the real world, not only when you have a job, but even in school.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we're coming on the other side of the everybody gets a pat on the back culture where, it's, I think I like the idea of you work as a team and whatever you could contribute at your level, you contribute.
Yeah.
So I think it was Nate who mentioned that one of his children is more focused than the other.
Yes.
And you guys were talking about how do you deal with that. And we've experienced the same, and we don't know how it is to have kids at different ages in the family at our house because they're all born at the same time. So we've seen that there's certain activities, one child is more focused.
Yes.
The other two may not be as focused, and how just by praising them in a certain way, the other two get on board.
Yeah.
And I think we have the advantage of doing that because they're all the same age. And if you don't have them at the same age, how do you encourage kids at different ages? I think that's a struggle that parents have today, is how do you encourage a 5-year-old from doing work that he's supposed to do when he says, well, the 3-year-old's not doing any work. And then you're trying to say, well, he's at a different age. And so you have to make age appropriate benefits for them.
Right.
And I think that goes back to the performance-based goal setting or performance-based rewards. And the chore chart there is really important because they're saying, okay, when you're 5 years old, these are the chores that are appropriate for you.
Right.
And your 3-year-old brother or sister, these are the chores that are appropriate for them. So I see the value of a chore chart. I'm just saying that for me growing up, me and my sister were a year apart. So we were pretty much treated the same. And for our kids, they're treated the same.
Right.
And for you were the one in the family, so you were treated the same. So there was no real comparison. So I don't think we really know what it's like to have a diverse age group within our family.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think that what we do have, though, are 3 very different personality children. And so kind of the idea of that we parent to each personality and not make blanket rules in the house, I think is kind of really important to nurturing what the kids' strengths and weaknesses are. So, 2 of the children may love to set the table and the third one doesn't. So we give a benefit to whoever sets the table gets to decide where everybody's sitting. So you don't have to set the table. That's totally fine. But then you don't get to decide where everybody's sitting. You have to be happy with whatever seat you're assigned.
Right.
And that's been really powerful with the triplets who, in certain things they will have different approaches, but finding that one, for lack of a better word, carrot that is relationship based or something that that's really important to all 3 of them, I found has been a way to really nurture maybe a child's weaknesses or something that they don't think is really important to learn, and to be able to get them to do that task or learn that skill.
Well, I mean, on that topic, I think one of the things that I'm struggling with right now is the fact that I sort of want them to have their own individuality, yet I still want them to have that bond between the 3 of them.
Right.
So one thing that we do is they like picking out clothes for everybody. That's one of the things that happens every morning is who gets to pick out their clothes. And even this morning, I was like, you know what? I think maybe we should make it so that they each get to pick out their own clothes.
Yeah.
Because yes, it's an encouragement, but I don't want their clothes is a nice way to express their personality. So I sort of want them to say, oh, I want to wear this. I don't want to have to match the other two.
Right.
I don't want to have to be forced into that peg. Like, I don't want to have to be forced into that idea. So I was having this thought this morning myself when they were arguing about, oh, I want to pick out the clothes or I want to pick out the clothes. I was like, just pick out your own set.
Right.
And then my daughter got really upset because she loves picking out clothes for her brothers. So that's going to be a tough one for us to get over. And I think it ties closely. I think what rang was what your interview with Danny was, and she was talking about how kids have an emotional connection to things, and how she was talking from the organizational side, where she's talking about how you can get them to let go of things, or how do you get them to transition clothes out or transition toys out, because she has this strong belief, and I think I really like it, as one in, one out. So when you get something's got to go. And for kids at any age, I think that's a very tough thing for them to grasp. And so this emotional attachment, and again, it rang with me this morning because I was thinking about the clothes. I want them to pick out their own clothes because they each have a different emotional attachment to different set of clothes. And so that went back and forth in my mind, and I'm like, well, how do I make that transition now after we've gone so far with the, you wake up first, you brush your teeth, you make your bed, you get to pick out the clothes. So that little transition, that switch is going to be something that we're going to have to work at. But I was thinking about that this morning, and I didn't quite know how to get across that hurdle.
I loved Danny's one in, one out rule, and really just her entire approach to chores and organization. And she talks in the interview about her simple 2-step process to getting kids organized, teaching them organization, and then having them stay that way, which I thought was so powerful. And she's done it. She's got a 3.5-year-old and a 5-year-old. And then also kind of having those daily conversations. I was telling her that when the triplets were little means about 2 years old, I'd be the secret cleanup fairy. Once everybody was asleep, go around the house and clean up.
Yeah.
But when they wake up, they don't even realize that you did any of that.
It's true.
And she talked about the value in including them in understanding that everything has a place and that everything needs to be in its place, and how do you really take care of your things, and that everything kind of has this energy about it, and you do have an emotional connection. And then how do you, when your child has outgrown their clothes, or it's time for the stuffed animals to go, or the age appropriate toys, now they've moved out of that stage and it's time to donate them, really how you can have that conversation from the very beginning and really include the kids in that decision-making process, so that they not only learn in this moment how to be organized and how to stay organized and how to let things go, but then how that very simple, teachable moment translates to real-world loss, and being able to understand that, if you do lose a pet or you do lose a person, that they're already starting to build the emotional ability to process that at 2 years old.
Right. Or if you move, which is a little bit more.
Or if you move, which was a huge one, because children process moving as a loss as well.
Yeah, pretty traumatic. And one thing she did mention, which was really, it really stuck with me, was she's talking about getting them involved in the process of cleaning their stuff. Like, she talked about art and how she has they have a process in their home where all the art that they ever do gets put away in a folder. And they keep all their art. And then at the end of the year, they go through, and she had a really nice tip about taking pictures of the art. And so you can take a picture of the art with the artist and put it in a book.
That was an awesome tip.
Yeah, it was really nice because it gave you the opportunity to capture them being prouder of their work too, right? Which you don't get to see when you just have the piece of art there.
Right.
With the date on it, because it was in the moment way back when. So I really like that idea. And then she talked about how even after she does that scrapbook at the end of the year, they sit down and they have these rules set out about how they're going to choose which paintings or which artworks to keep. And then they would throw the rest of them out. And how she said that it's very important for the child to be involved in that, because if they next morning they wake up and they see garbage full of their artwork,
right,
without them being involved, that's pretty traumatic, right?
Right.
So I mean, I really like that idea. It really made sense to me. And she kept talking about teaching opportunities to get the kids involved and how to pick out what's important to them and what they want to keep or what they want to pass on. And you know, she had some really great tips. And I mean, there was so many. It was a really nice interview you did with her, and I think that people can get a lot about what was talked about there. And I really like that clock tip too. That was really nice. You know, one other thing she mentioned was she said that about organization. She said kids play with the same things over and over again. And she also touched on that with their clothes. Like kids will, if it's up to them, they'll choose the same clothes over and over again.
Right.
So I think that, and when she was talking about organization, she was saying that as a parent, we have to be very careful not to let our emotional attachment to these things get in the way of the child doing a natural process of cleansing. And the one thing that stuck in my mind is if and when our kids decide to throw away some of their toys, like the memory game that my daughter is really, really good at.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to let that go, even though for them, they'll be like, all right, let's get the next toy. But for me as a parent, like, man, you were destroying me on that memory game. She was so good at that. So those kind of things are going to be hard for me to let go. But it's going to be a part of that process of, they've grown up. They understand that we're passing it on to somebody else. And we have the right now to bring something else into the house.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a powerful life lesson. And I really loved, you know, like you said, Danny just had like so many incredible tips. I was taking frivolous notes and just kind of, you know, I felt like the organization part really wasn't chore-ish, so that it was more of in her house and kind of what it is in our house, more of a part of your routine, rather than, you know, a parent telling a child this is what you have to do as a chore.
Right.
It was more of an involvement and inclusive in the decision making on a daily basis.
Yeah, you know, and then one of the things for me is sometimes we have one of our children who has this really nice ability to get his work done by asking other people to do it. So
a future world leader.
Yeah, so he's phenomenal at that. So one of the things that I struggle with, and I think a chore chart would help us, but again, it conflicts with my whole thinking, is for him, it would show that we are leaning on him. He's responsible for these items. So I'm conflicted with that too, because I want him to have a sense of responsibility within our house that, look, we're relying on you to do these things.
Right.
Without being explicit and making it seem tedious.
But sometimes he just really shows up. Like sometimes he just blows your mind with how responsible he is and does things that, you know, where in the norm, you know, we may ask him to do stuff and he somehow gets somebody else to do it or finds a shortcut or something. Yeah. But then sometimes he just nails it. And so, you know, it's kind of he knows how to do it, but, you know, he chooses not to do it. Yeah. But I think that, you know, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, which is really my focus in raising the triplets, that it's this recognition for me that chores may be this idea of a parent telling a child what to do. I love it as a teaching tool and as a part of routine and using it as a teaching opportunity. I'm not fully sold on a chore chart because I don't feel like that would work. That would be a fit for our family.
Right.
But what I am interested in is kind of an emotional intelligence-based chore chart. So something that says, you know, did you give gratitude today? Did you show empathy towards someone today? did you recognize something positive in a negative situation today? And I feel like that type of chart, really nurturing the skills that I want them to learn the most and to have the strongest skill set in, I'm curious as to how that would translate in our family.
That's an interesting approach. I think, yeah, we never even talked about that. But that's a good idea. We take it there kind of every night before we go to sleep. We ask them, "What are you grateful for?"
Oh yeah, for sure. We do the things. We take it there.
Right.
I'm curious as to how that would translate into kind of real world parenting. Maybe we should do a case study.
Try it at our house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. We could give that a shot. And I kind of harken back to what Julie also said. Julie mentioned was she's trying not to force her OCD on her children. Right. So we have to be careful that we don't really kind of, when you're asking them to do things or when you're asking them to think about their days, we also have to be quite present in that. We shouldn't just make it a routine, quote unquote, right?
Right.
So
absolutely.
It's very important that if we're doing something like that, we're in the moment where we're really connecting with them, saying like, look, we want you to think about what you did throughout your day. We want to make sure that you're consciously aware about your effects on other people's lives.
Yep.
So think about what you've done. And I think that's a nice way to end the day, because it lets them celebrate these accomplishments, and it also lets them think about that through the next day if there's something they missed and a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I think, on that chart, mom and dad's names go on there too, because that's what we do with gratitude in the evening, is they will say what they're grateful for, and then they'll say, "Mom, what are you grateful for from today?"
Right.
And that really is my favorite part of the day, is me going through my day and really being able to express to them, this is what I'm grateful for from today. And for them to kind of not only do it themselves, but then for me to be able to model that and also to learn from them.
I think that's really great. I think we should see what our listeners think. You guys have some ideas about what we could do, what works in your family. We'd really look forward to hearing from you. I think that gives us an opportunity to see what other people are doing, and it'll give our audience a wider scope of what's possible or what's successful in other families.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And a great way to learn about what works for other parents as well.
Right.
Well, it was another awesome week this week, and let's do it again next week.
Sounds great.
If you'd like to see any of the shows we talked about today, please visit parenttalk.tv. Do us a favor and give us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. We are a brand new show, and your ratings and reviews help tremendously in getting the word out. And please hit subscribe. If you want to tell your friends about it, share our website, WeGo-Kids.com. Please subscribe, leave a rating and review, and tell your friends. That's all for today. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of From Me to We, and away we go.